Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy lives to join us. I'm going to give it a few minutes here, see if anybody else is going to join us. While we're doing that, where's everybody tuning in from? I'm always curious to see. I'm in Langley, British Columbia, Canada. West coast of Canada. Where's everybody else at today? Also got my colleague Mel, who's on with us, who'll be in the comments answering some questions. She may or may not be on a phone call at this very moment, but she will be back to help everybody in the questions as I'm presenting things. All right, what do we have? Ontario. Oh, that's Mel. I was like, oh, another person in Ontario. Buenos Aires. Cool. Dallas, London. Okay, so Mel is in fact with us. So today's webinar is about lead generation. I'm going to show you some Browse AI. It's not necessarily for a beginner session. I will explain what I'm doing as I'm going, but I'm mostly interested in how can you go beyond Browse AI to do stuff with the data after you've scraped it. Even if you only scrape the data, that's already very handy, but I want to show what you can do afterwards to maybe improve your process, make things a little bit easier. I'm not an expert by any means in terms of the AI portion of things, but for that very reason, I think it's more accessible. I'm just tinkering around, showing some things, and maybe give you some ideas. So let's turn off the music here. All right, let's get started. So who am I, first of all? I should clarify, this photo is actually, this image is created from an actual photo of me, and I just played around with ChatGPT. So I didn't make that up. I actually was somewhere with a parrot on me. So I'm at Browse AI since August of 2023. Before that, I worked at Zapier. I started in support and then went to Success. I was a community manager. And in that time, I just kind of fell in love with no code and apps and automation, and now with AI and all that stuff. And I actually bought the original Browse AI lifetime deal before I even knew what I wanted to do with the product. I just thought it was really cool, and someday I might have a need for it. And here I am at the company now, getting to speak to all you fine folks and teach you about Browse AI. And speaking of, here's Browse AI in a nutshell for anybody who's not super familiar. It lets you extract data from any website without needing to know how to code at all. You can monitor those websites for changes automatically, so you can check those websites and scrape them when there's new information. You can integrate that data into your existing tools. So we've got Google Sheets and Airtable as native integrations. You could send it to tools like Zapier, Make, Pabbly to get it to the rest of your tech stack. And those are some of the reasons we're trusted by over 500,000 users worldwide. And this is anywhere from startups and freelancers to small, medium business to enterprise. It runs the gamut from all sizes of business. Use cases. Here are just some of the use cases for Browse AI. I've intentionally dimmed all the ones that are not the one we're talking about today. But I'm curious if anyone wants to comment, what are some of the use cases you're trying to use Browse AI for? Probably lead generation because you're on this webinar. Have you tried anything else? Is there any other ones from this screen here that you've given a try? Let's see a question. Yes, the webinar will be sent afterwards. The recorded webinar will be sent afterwards. Mel has already answered. Anybody want to share what they're trying to do? Or even in the lead generation, share with others what they're trying to accomplish. LLMs is a big one, but you can actually combine to accomplish many of these other use cases. So since we're talking about lead generation, let's clarify, what do I mean by lead generation? You could think, oh, people I want to sell to, but I think there's a lot of other things that can fall under that umbrella, like finding potential prospects is one of them for sure. For your customer profile or business needs, contact discovery. I think just finding people, professional information that you might want to interact with, from strangers to warm leads, targeted outreach opportunities, relationship building foundation. So you create the information base needed to establish business connections, qualification at scale, first touch optimization, cross-platform connection, resource optimization, strategic relationship mapping. There's all kinds of reasons you might consider someone a lead. It's not just, I want to sell to this person. And I'm going to show you a bit of a different use case in terms of lead generation that actually one of our brand new coworkers put me onto. He gave it as an example, and I thought it was a pretty cool one. So before we jump into the live demo here, here's what we're going to cover. I'm going to scrape people from a listing page. So a page that contains a lot of people on it. I'm going to scrape that, and then I'm going to extract data from each person's detail page. In this case, the detail page is kind of light on extra data, but I want to show how it's done and that it's possible. I'm going to use ChatGPT. You could use Claude or Gemini or any of the other tools out there. I just happen to pick this one to create some intro messages for these folks. So using the data from the extraction, I'm going to have ChatGPT help me craft some intro messages for those folks that are a bit more tailored and not, you've all received those messages that don't really say anything and they took minimal effort to try and get to know who you are. I'm going to enrich that message with info from a web search briefly, just to show that it's possible. Not all tools can do it necessarily, but you could if you wanted to go beyond what that website shows. Find each person on LinkedIn. This one, there might be some pros or experts out there that can get AI to get the exact LinkedIn URL. I tried it and I wasn't able to get always because there's multiple people with that name. So I devised a way to create a URL to put some keywords into it that helps me search it more quickly. And then I can use my brain, my human brain, to figure out if that's the right person. And then we'll personalize the message even more using just one little trick that I thought to check. So I remembered that another app existed. So I will just move you all over here and I will share my screen here. Okay, so I looked up what kind of conferences were happening. And this one came up. It's actually in Vancouver, just coincidental. I just liked this website. It's coming up soon. It's got a good list of speakers here. So let's say I'm someone who wants to scrape all these speakers, and you probably wouldn't want to reach out to all of them, but for the sake of argument, you want to reach out to absolutely everybody and just see if anybody will meet up with you, talk to you, accept you on LinkedIn, whatever the thing is. You might want to sell to these folks, invest in their businesses, collaborate with them. There's all kinds of reasons you might want to get people from a list like this. And it says right up here, so we know how many there are, 150 speakers. So there's 3 pages worth of these folks. I doubt that some of these people would ever talk to me personally, but who knows? Out of 150, maybe I get a couple people who accept my invitation to meet up. So I'm going to copy this URL, the speaker's URL. I've done this a few times already, but I'm going to build a new robot here. And I should point out, the cool thing about something like Browse AI is this database doesn't exist anywhere. It's not a database that's out there. This is a curated list of people at an ad hoc conference that's happening one time. There's no database of these folks, so you can make your own database. So back in Browse AI, I'm going to extract structured data. I'm going to paste this URL. I don't need to log into this website, so I won't check that box. Start training robot, and then I'll use Robot Studio. And as I'm going along, I'll give you a couple little tips and tricks, but I'm not going to spend too much time on the actual teaching of all the details. We've got some intro webinars for that. We've got some videos on our YouTube channel. We've got a help center. This is more to show you what's possible in terms of scraping a list of people, getting some details, and taking them out of Browse AI as well. If this ever happens where it seems like it's kind of stuck, I just refresh the window and usually that does it. And if for some reason it doesn't work live, I've already got the robots built that I can show you, but this should just go in a second here. While this is loading up, let me actually show you what the next thing after this robot. I will just scrape the detail page for each of these folks. And as I said, it's kind of sparse in terms of, the website won't even load for me. What's going on? There we go. It's kind of sparse in terms of what extra information there is here, but there is a little bit of extra stuff here, including these tags, and I'll get to that in a minute. All right, almost certain. Usually it doesn't take this long, but here we are, doing it live. All right, so first tip, I don't even necessarily always click on these banners. If it's not impeding my work, I just give the robot fewer things to do in terms of what I want it to do for me. So I'll just click on capture text from a list, and then I'll hover over here. No, you're not going to work for me, huh? This has worked every other time. All right, we'll just click this. Nothing is going as it should here. Why? It's worked every other time. Well, we'll restart the session. The live demo gods are not shining upon me today, apparently. It's okay, we'll get it done. All right, so here we go again. Capture text from a list, and I'll hover over these items. Here we go. So you can see as I hover, the list items are all highlighted. This site is very clean. It works very well. So I'll click on the first person here, and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to pick the data points I want. The robot goes through and tells me, hey, this is probably what you want. You probably want the name and the position and the company, the profile link, and maybe the profile image. If I don't want some of these, I can click remove column. I can rename them if I wanted to do so. These are pretty good names. I probably wouldn't rename these. I can rename the list if I want, just speakers. So this looks pretty good. This little workflow available, that's indicating, hey, this seems like it's a link to a detail page that occurs in each and every one of these items in this list. It probably is something you might want to create a workflow for, which is deep scraping. So you get the list of items, you go into each item and get details. So this is a helpful little tag to keep an eye out for. I happen to know, I think there's 25 people on each page. So I do want to scrape at least enough that we have to go through some pagination. So let's get 40 items. And click on next page is what the robot has determined is pagination. Let's review that. Sure enough, click on next page right there. So let's confirm that and save captured list. If I wanted to, I could also get some static text from this page. Could capture text and then just text. If I wanted to get, I don't know, what's up here for some reason. I might want this information. Just to show you, you can get a list of items, but that's not all you can necessarily do on that page. You can get other things. You can even get separate lists from the same page. But in this case, let's just do the list and that little piece of text just to show that it's possible. Call it header text. And we'll save capture text. Now let's finish with this robot's recording here. And I'll name it something to differentiate this one from all the ones I've built before. I'll call it live. So now the robot's going to run on a cloud server and it's going to emulate all the things I just did. So it's going to open Chrome, simulate user actions. You can see this number right here, this 28. That's showing how many list items it's gotten so far. So it got my 40. Perfect. Got my header text right here. And each of these speakers is down below. Okay, so far, so good. In this case, you probably could export this list of people and then do something with that information. Because as I pointed out, there's not so much extra info on these detail pages, but there's enough that if you didn't have access to a web search in your AI tool, you could maybe use what's in this little bio, have it read a little message for you. So let's just, for the sake of showing you, let's go scrape a detail page here. So I'll go back to the dashboard and I will build a new robot, extract structured data, paste this URL to the detail page. Again, I don't need to log in. I'll start training robot and then use Robot Studio. Anybody's asking any questions? No, not too much. Okay. I swear every other time I've done this, even today, even an hour ago, this was working just fine. But I'm also impatient. I also don't like to wait. So I'm just going to refresh. Come on, Vancouver Web Summit. Work with me. Maybe they're getting a lot of signups. Maybe that's what's happening. They're busy right now and it's impacting me. I don't know. So if this doesn't go, I'll just use one of the robots I've already built and show you what I managed to scrape. I could just do that, I suppose, if this doesn't go. It's not that different from what I just showed in terms of what you would do. You would do just text. Instead of doing a list, you do the just text and label each piece of text. It's going to give this one more second, though, because I would like to show you. This is interesting. Is this my Wi-Fi? Something happening here. Oopsies. I'm going to go back and just start over here. Sorry, folks. The beauty of trying things live. This one doesn't go, we'll just move on and I'll show you what I previously built, and then we'll jump into the kind of fun stuff of how you can start to use the data you scraped to do some interesting things. So 10 seconds, and if this doesn't go, I'm going to bounce from this. Okay. And let's dashboard. Okay, so luckily I just literally right before this call did it over here. So this was my speakers list and this was my person details. So in person details, I got the extra information. I only did it for one person. But you can see, got the name, the title of the company, the bio, the country, which is an extra piece of information, the industry, and their image. And I did it yesterday and I got even more of the items. So let's go into a more detailed one. Let's go to person details and show you a lot of folks. So here's everyone on that page. Now, what could I do once I have this data? I could export this data because it's a bit more detailed. You could do it with the first page, but there's a bit more detail. So what I asked myself was, okay, if I'm exporting these folks and I'd like to create a message to send to them, what could I include in a message like that? So I'm just going to show you a project I've got in ChatGPT and just my thinking process and the questions I asked and how it evolved to a few other things. So I first came in here and I said, I uploaded the CSV of people and it's understood, okay, you've got a CSV of people. I put in the instructions, just very basic. I'm not a prompt master. I wasn't trying to do super intense. Just I've got a list of speakers and it's going to include these items and I want to craft short messages. So that's really all the instructions I gave it. And then I came in here and it determined what's in my file. Next step, I'll help you craft short message openers. And then it asked me a question. What tone do I want? So I said friendly professional. And just do one example first. And so it found the first person and it kind of walks through what it's doing. Let's take the first person. Her description says this. Here's a sample opener you could use. Would you like a few alternative versions? So let's do a bit longer, uses information from a web search. And then it gave me this one. Let me know if you'd like me to proceed with similar personalized openers. I said, let's do this for the next 10 speakers. So it went through, did it for the next 10 speakers. Here's a quick view of the next 10 speakers. Here are personalized friendly message openers. So already, even just getting the data could be useful wherever you want to put it. You want to put it into a spreadsheet. You want to put it into some other app that you've got for prospecting. But now it's taking that data and it's giving me these little messages. And maybe I should spend more time on these because I'm sure lots of other folks are doing something like this and they get all kinds of messages from people. But I just wanted to show that with even a few pieces of data, you can throw it into something like ChatGPT and then do this at scale. You can do this for all the people on that page. So within like 10, 15, 20 minutes, you've scraped all those folks and you've done something with that data. Would you like me to continue with personalized messages? I said, yes, do it for the remaining speakers. Okay, so it did it for not the remainder, but I said the whole remaining list. And then it went through them, all speakers covered. And I said, I don't think you've done it for all 150 speakers. So this is going to be a process where you might have to go back and forth with some of this stuff. Quick question before we continue. And then I didn't keep going with this message. I went back to the projects and I did something different. I went to the next thing and I said, let's get the LinkedIn URLs for the companies. So I've got all the company names. I said, for all the companies in the org column, can you find the LinkedIn company URL? And so then it went through and it found these for the first 5, which again, is pretty handy. You've got all the company names and then I can click on these and then here we go. So I've got that information as well if I want AI to help me find data like that. I thought, what else could I do with this information? I said, help me write an intro specifically for that one person, for Lisa Clooney, using all the project files in a web search. And so it gave me this message. If you'd like to adjust the tone, I said anything more recent than 2022, because it mentioned 2022. And I was like, that's not super recent. Anything more recent than that. And then this will give me another version. And then it asked me, do you want to adjust the tone? And so I decided not to do any more with this, but I thought, okay, that's cool. I could, if I didn't want to do it for everybody, I could just scan my list, see who's interesting to me, help me write an intro for a specific person. So then I thought, okay, what else can I do with this? Can I just literally go in and just type a person's name and have it just know what I want it to do? Got it. You mentioned David Shim. And then from the context of what I've asked it to do, it went forward and gave me this little intro. Would you like to adjust the tone? And said, what's his LinkedIn profile URL? And so it did a web search and it did get it for him. So great. It found this one person. So I thought, okay, if it can find one person, can I get more URLs? So I said, can you craft short messages for the first 20 people in my uploaded CSV and give me the link to their LinkedIn profiles to see if it would be able to do that accurately? It did it for most of them. So you could probably get by with something like this. But then I came across one of them down here. This guy, I don't know why I clicked on this one and found that it was incorrect, but I was like, I don't think that's the right guy. So because it made that one mistake, I decided to do something like this. And this is kind of interesting. So this little bit here is a search for people and then keywords equals. And then I said, add the name, title, and company from the CSV to the end of that. And so it did that. And then I said, can you make them clickable for me? Which ended up getting me something like this. So for Lisa Clooney, LinkedIn search. So it searches right up here and you'll see the name and the title and the company. So I kind of prefer this. Instead of assuming that AI will necessarily be able to find it, I can give it a bit of instruction to say, hey, use this information in a search using this format, and then I will scan it. There probably aren't so many people with that name given those keywords, but then I can click into the person. And so I didn't do it for the remainder of them, but you can see in this case, it didn't actually do it properly. So I think it's because it was inc.com. So I tried going, what about just inc? No, stop. Inc. And so then I found it. So it would take a bit of tweaking, but I prefer to do it this way a bit manually than just assume it will always find the right person. So you could decide which way you want to do it. I just thought it was interesting to give it something like that, which is part automation, part AI, but also part just, the eye test. I can look at it myself. Go back to the project. Okay, so then I said a lot of things. I said, based on the speakers in my uploaded CSV at Web Summit, what use case could there be for using a web scraping tool to gather their data? So sometimes you might come across data, you're like, this is a treasure trove. There's like so much great data here. And you want to do something with it, but you don't necessarily know what. And so I just asked it straight up, what are some ideas of things you could do with this data? Like what might I be able to do with it? And it gave me some suggestions. And one of them was, you could scrape publicly available info, like LinkedIn profiles, company websites, press mentions. And then it said richer profile, including recent articles, podcasts, or interviews. And I remembered that there was a tool I heard of last year that lets you scan all the podcasts out there. You can either do a search or you can have it do real-time monitoring of all the podcasts. And I thought, if these speakers are out of Vancouver Web Summit, they're probably on some podcasts, either mentioned or as guests. So I thought, could I use that tool? So I signed up for a free trial of it. It's called PodScan. And so what you could do is you could import alerts. There's a very specific format they want. Oh, come on. One moment here. I will drag you over here and log in. There's a very specific format they want for the imported URL, the imported CSV. So I didn't go ahead and do that, but you could build that from what you export from Browse AI. So I did just one alert. I thought, okay, let's just do the first name on that list. So Jay Graber, I made an alert for it. It's listening for mentions, so there haven't been any new ones, but then you can do a full text search. So what you could do is you import all the alerts and then just do text searches for them based on all those imports instead of typing them all in. And then it found these 5 podcasts. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool that I've got this data. And if you go to right here, you can add them to a list. So I added them to a list. And then from this list, you can go here and export. So I thought, let's export this and then bring that back into ChatGPT. I said, help me craft a better opening message for Jay Graber based on, I hope it's Graber, based on the JSON or podcast I uploaded. And so then it took that data from podcasts and made me another little intro message here. So what I'm trying to show you is you don't have to just stop at what you've scraped. You don't have to just put it into a spreadsheet and then, do some formulas and analyze and filters. You can throw it into something like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of the tools. Do a better job than I even did. I didn't spend a ton of time doing this. I just kind of kept iterating. Next step, next step, next step. and get data from other sources and put together something much more customized. If I had been a person who speaks on podcasts and someone reached out mentioning those, I would be a bit more receptive. They at least took the time to figure out where I've spoken. I didn't really. I just did, this stuff. I didn't actually listen to them. But yeah, that's just an example of how you could go a bit beyond the obvious. So then I went back to the websites. It's like, what else is here besides speakers? Because those speakers, they might be big time and they might not speak to you. There's also attendees. So attendees are folks that, if you click into them, I had to do a bit of digging. Alpha are people who are associated with a company that's in the startups here. So featured startups. So if it says alpha, they're connected to these featured startups. So those are folks maybe you might want to reach out to, either because you want to know more about their startups, maybe you want to invest in them, maybe you want to work for them. So that's an example of something else on this same website that you could do, is scrape these attendees and see who's connected to startups and maybe make some contacts that way. And so it turns out if you go to the attendees, I don't even need to create a second robot, because this is essentially, with like one extra piece of data, it's essentially the same thing as the speakers. So I tested, can I just copy this URL, featured attendees, and go back to the robot I built? So let's just do the speakers list I just did live. And let's see if it's close enough in format that I don't need to create another robot. And that's another little tip, is you don't always have to make another robot. If the structure of the page is pretty similar to what you trained it on, you can just go ahead and put a new URL. So that saves you work. You can multi-purpose a robot. You don't have to build new robots for everything necessarily if it's similar kind of format. And if you go back to this and you click on a person, it's the same as the detail page of just speakers. So yes, it shows up under attendees, but they've built the format of the pages, so they are very similar. So if I go back to the robot that is running, you should see, if everything goes as it should, so position, name, company, profile link. So because I didn't train it specifically on that page, it didn't get the country, but that's okay. I don't necessarily need that. I can get that from the details if I wanted to. So now I've got these attendees that I can get from the same robot that I built. So I said to ChatGPT, I was like, I'll export. I scraped the startups and I scraped the attendees, and I wanted to match. Can you find me the people that are associated with startups? Because they are listed as alpha. So that was something that's something that you wouldn't be able to do super easily. Because if you go to startups and go featured startups and you click into them, this website hasn't shown you who's associated with that company. And if you go to the attendees, and even if you find someone, you'd have to click in to see, okay, are they alpha? And then what's the company? It's right here. And then you don't have easy access to see who are all of them. I might want to know who all of them are. So I uploaded those two pieces of data. I said I uploaded a CSV of featured attendees and one for startups. Anyone who's categorized as alpha belongs to one of the startups. So I asked it to match the people to the startups, write me a short personalized intro message for each of those people, using info from the startup bio and searching their startup website if necessary, because the startup website is given on this detail page. And construct a LinkedIn search URL for each of the attendees. Again, that same kind of URL format. Here's a table showing all the alpha attendees. I said start with the first 10 people / startups. And so it went through and it got the people in here. I said only do this for the ones that have connected startup. So it was using all of them. I said I don't want them if they're not connected to a startup. And so then it did what I wanted it to do. I said yes, and don't forget to construct those LinkedIn URLs I can click on. So now I've got the person, what startup they are at, their position, and then a LinkedIn search. So for this person, I can now click on this, and that person didn't come up. So I then realized, maybe I don't need to put the job title. So I said, don't include the job title, because maybe that's throwing it off. Just the person and the company, that's probably good enough. So it went through and fixed them, and then still no results. So like, okay, not everyone will necessarily have a result based on that. But a lot of them will if they have connected themselves to the companies and have their LinkedIn's set up such that that stuff is listed. So you'll have some hits, some misses. Everyone won't always be there. said, ready to proceed with the next batch. I said, yes, let's do the next batch. In the output, use the format you did with the URL as specified. So then I had to go through again and do more people, and I clicked through, and a lot of them were there. I was able to do this. So that's an example of how can I not just do one thing on that website? Are there other parts of this website I could also scrape and have AI help me make connections that would be way too time consuming and I probably wouldn't spend the time doing, which is to connect people and startups. You could also go into exhibitors if you wanted to see who the partners are. You could probably even do it such that you check out startups and speakers and connect them with exhibitors or investors if you wanted to do that kind of work, be the middle person. There's all kinds of things you can do with this data that you can't get elsewhere. It's just on this website. There's no other website that has these people listed such that it's easy to make these connections. So I'm hoping that I'm able to show you in this example how you can use data from a website, scrape it, and then go a bit beyond what is obvious to do some other stuff. So I want to show a couple of other lead websites you might be able to do something with that's not as obvious. So this is the site I came across via a user. It's called Quoted. And if you go to quoted.com and you go to the expert database, this is a database of people who are experts in given categories. You can filter by their status, their, what's, is it culture, health, money, politics. You can do searches based on the company, on their title, on what they speak about. These folks are trying to get, as the website says, quoted. They want to be a source for stories. But you could come here and find out who's an expert in what and make different types of connections. You can go into story ideas, and these are give you a quick rundown on what experts are talking about. So there's all kinds of stuff in here that you could scrape a list like this. And then if you click on a person, there's all this great information. Like there's so much info here. Story ideas, their employment. Some of these have media. So you could come to a site like this and either use it as it is and get data and do something, or you could use this as an enrichment. You could get people from here and then cross-reference with other sources of data to see if you could make them a bit of a more full profile. Like this person, for example, they've got media, they've got their bio, they've got all these tags, divorce lawyer, family law. There's just so much data on a site like this. And so I encourage you to ask yourself when you get to a site that seems like, oh, wow, this is really easy access, all this data. What could I maybe do with it? And this was another example from a user of ours, publicsquare.com. I'd never heard of publicsquare.com. You can do a couple things here. You can click into a category, and then you can see items, so products. You can also click on, though, businesses. So if you wanted to find businesses, people selling a certain kind of thing, again, either because you want to maybe sell something to those businesses, you want to work with those businesses, you filter by that, and then click into, and then click again. And this is something Browse.ai can do for you, is do these clicks and then scrape this information about the business. So phone number, email, website. So imagine the power of being able to pick a category that you're interested in, scraping all those businesses and all their contact info, and then you've built your own database. A couple of examples of what people answered in the registration questions was biz buy sell was, an example someone gave of a site they wanted to scrape for leads. That's a great one. These are businesses for sale. You could get all kinds of data from a site like this. This one I was not familiar with, Career Builder. Many job sites out there. Some are easier to get data from than others. LinkedIn is notoriously not as easy to get data from, but some of these other ones like Career Builder here, looks like there's all kinds of things you could poke around with and dig in and find maybe a page that has the data you want that's not obvious. This one I thought was fun. It's just pickleball. Just you go here and you go to search players and you can see players by ranking, pickleball players by ranking. So again, this kind of database probably doesn't exist out there, but you could come here and scrape a list like this and then enrich it with something like AI and make yourself the exact list of data that you want to use. So I know it was a little light on the Browse.ai side of stuff, but I wanted to show that the scraping of data, while cool and very powerful, it's what you can do afterwards that I find more interesting. And that's, I think, where everyone's moving towards. Data is what powers it, but what you can do beyond just the data, that's where it gets super interesting. And so I'm going to bring Mel on here, and she's going to talk about our various pricing options for Browse AI, including if you are someone who wants to do this at scale, maybe you want to look into our managed services. So here is Mel.
Hello, hello. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks Nick for, as always, for diving in real time into our product in the world of web scraping. Nice to meet y'all. Thank you to all who were chatting in the chat. I always enjoy talking to prospects and customers in the chat. I'm here to talk about pricing, packaging, as well as how you can start in a couple options you have with Browse AI. So at Browse AI, we have two ways that customers build their own web scraping platforms with us. The first is through self-serve, where you can build everything that Nick walked you through today and more. So you log into our platform, you build the robots that you need, you scrape the data, you create workflows, you integrate it into where you need. We have a free plan, which most of you should be on. That includes free 50 credits, which updates monthly. So don't worry about testing our platform out. Using those credits, they will refresh every single month. If you need more usage beyond that, which you likely do, especially if you're going to be using this for lead generation or lead scraping, depending on our usage, we have a couple options that range in price, depending on the volume of data that you're looking to extract. If you're sitting on this call and thinking, I don't want to build this myself, I want some help. The other option, if Nick, you can go then, I can do the next slide. I always forget that I have the power, is that we do offer managed solutions. So we offer managed solutions for our customers in two different ways. The first is for if you're sitting on this call thinking, oh my gosh, I have to scrape a lot of data, or the data that I need to scrape is complicated, or maybe it's a little bit of both. We offer fully managed solutions to customers starting at $500 a month paid annually. This is typically for larger scale data extraction that's ongoing for businesses and it's like more tied to your needs. So all the words that I'm saying out loud resonate with you. It's likely that you fit exactly what I'm talking about. We offer complete customized packages from tip to tail. We offer a full range of different managed options, including setup, delivery, transformation, post-processing, all different things that we offer in price depending on what you're looking for. The other option that we have is a new option that we've kind of just rolled out. And if you're thinking, I just really want help getting started, but from there I can kind of take it on my own, we also offer one-off services for folks to get started if they're looking for concierge onboarding, but then really want to use this as a self-serve platform. So those options are all available to you. If you're still confused and want to know more about pricing, feel free to drop a note in the chat or reach out to Nick or myself or anyone on our support team, and we're happy to chat with you.
Questions? Anybody got questions? Did you get to, do you think all the questions that were being asked while I was?
Yeah, there was this great specific question from Stephanie around scraping a very specific site. So I got to jump in and scrape some data, which I always love to do.
Wow. Okay.
Social is a great question. We do have really good pre-built robots.
Yeah, that's a good point. Check out the pre-built robots. Pre-built robots are a great place to check because we have refined those and done some things that you can't easily do by training it yourself. Yeah, it's a great first place to check.
Especially for
social sites don't want to be scraped, so they make it as difficult. It's almost impossible to even sometimes just integrate with them properly. So I'd say give it a try, give it a shot.
It also depends on what you mean by social.
Mm-hmm.
Like LinkedIn is
YouTube versus
LinkedIn. Different.
Yeah, LinkedIn is very much in their interest to not let people easily get.
They do not
log in and use their product.
No. Facebook. Have you ever scraped Facebook with Browse AI, Nick?
The funny thing is, I don't actually try scraping social behind logins that much. I probably should. I should test them all out. That would be an interesting.
So project. I would say, Stephanie, that if it depends on also the security of that person or thing you're trying to scrape on Facebook. Like, obviously you can access content on Facebook without logging in, like if people have public profiles or groups. But anything through a login, which you can feed through Browse AI theoretically, you might be putting your own terms of service with Facebook at risk. So I would encourage you to check that out.
Also, anything with two-factor authentication is going to not really be possible for obvious reasons. If it was as easy as someone could pretend they're you and get around things, then it wouldn't really be secure.
Yeah, two-factor authentication. We don't have a robot that answers your phone and reads the text and finds those 4 numbers and feeds it back in.
Which, having been someone that just lost access to their Facebook account for like a month for something I didn't do at all because someone connected as something sketchy, I would be careful with how much access you give and trying to do stuff like that.
Same thing happened to me.
Don't turn off security features.
Facebook's like, we don't believe you're a real person. I had to send them pictures of my face. So here I am. I'm real, I promise. I've only been a member of your site since 2004.
Any other questions?
Soon, I'm sure. Yes. Cool. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you so much, Nick, for today's session. Thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you to everyone who listened in. Always enjoy these sessions and always enjoy learning about what kind of data we can scrape and what we can do with it.
Keep an eye out for future webinars. We'll have some more intro ones and basic and Browse AI 101s for anyone who might want something like that. And more things like this where we show, yes, how to use Browse AI, but how do you connect it to the rest of the emerging tech world to do a bit more with it. Thanks, everybody.